This is Mainstream Metaphysics with your host, Nick Newmont.
Well, hey there. Welcome to Mainstream Metaphysics. I'm Nick Newmont. It is again a Tuesday night in beautiful Southern California. Thank you for watching wherever you are, locally, around the world, around the country. Welcoming my guest, Inanna Draper. Thank you for coming back to the show. We appreciate you. And look, our friend Lisa Allen is saying hi. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Audrey. Hi, Becca.
Hi, Becca.
Thank you. We've got a fun, crazy show in store for you tonight. This is going to be a trip. We're going to really go into some wild topics.
Rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, rabbit hole, very deep. Couple quick notes. First of all, on May 2nd, which is in a few days, today's April 30th.
Yes.
I mean, oh my God, 4 months of the year. May 2nd, Pluto goes retrograde, okay? And when Pluto turns retrograde, things feel a little heavy, okay? And Pluto is retrograde in Aquarius right now, and as we get into the summer, it's going to go back into Capricorn, which makes things even heavier. Now, Pluto will go direct on October the 11th, and because Pluto moves so slowly and it's so far away from the sun, that's why the retrograde lasts so long, almost 6 months. So Pluto basically, in the course of a year, takes 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. It doesn't change a lot throughout the year. But during Pluto retrograde, you want to look at the concept of power. Maybe you want to reassess your power and how you use it, because Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth, transition, transformation. And it's a planet of deep change, all right? So it's time to make adjustments. It's time to just kind of step back and look at where your life is while Pluto is retrograde, all right? And because Pluto rules Scorpio, which is like the river Styx, Hades, most of the stuff that we work on when Pluto is retrograde is more deep and underneath us, all right? It's not, what's right on the surface, like with Mercury retrograde or something like that. So here we go. The series of retrogrades are going to start to begin. Another quick announcement. Tomorrow night, as usual on Wednesday nights, Audrey is on Conscious Mind Tripping, and it's her show, no guest tomorrow night. She has tons of notes for what she wants to talk about, so please tune in 6 o'clock every Wednesday night on Conscious Mind Tripping with Audrey, and 2 really good events coming up. June 15th, our good friend Gary Stewart, who performs the constellation healing, will be at the Newmont Center, again, June 15th. That's an all-day event. And then on June 22nd, which is also a Saturday, myself as Merlin and Alexandra as Golden Arrow, one of our repeat performances. And I would start getting tickets from now because those shows and events are really packed. And that's why we're announcing it from now. Now,
hold on. I got to get my ticket. Where's my phone?
Okay. You got your wallet?
Okay. Yes, I do. Okay.
All right. Good. See, this is what you have to do. You hear an announcement.
Yes, you do it.
Exactly.
Right now.
She listens. That's the mark of a good practitioner, someone who listens. Okay. Now, we don't have it. We don't have a date yet. We know this will be sometime in July, but Inanna, myself, Mary Elizabeth, and Gina Allen, who was on the show last week, we'll be doing a psychic panel.
Yes.
Okay? And then we will probably break into individual sessions for people that want individual time. Really looking forward to that.
Me
this
too.
Coming July. And thank you, Gina Ann, for being on this. Lisa Allen is watching. Gina Ann for the show last week. You will be back on the show. And if you didn't see last week's show with Gina Ann, please watch that. It was so good. And she touched on a lot of pertinent things, including conversation with my mother. Okay? But don't go watch it right now, stay right here and watch Inanna and myself. Please.
Right here, right now. That's after. I'll remind you, okay?
So, given a fun conversation you and I had,
Yes.
I brought some toys in. I don't always bring in toys. So I brought just a couple of the wands that I use in my work. Okay?
Oh.
Look at these. These are handmade custom wands.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, they are beautiful. My good friend Rachel Pittler makes these, and I believe that I think Ed and Becca have them also, and they are really potent. Would you like to hold one?
I would love to.
Because you're big into wands.
I am.
And
Oh, wow.
I use these in the healing work that I do. I have different wands that I take when I do property blessings. So, and these are all, this is metal. It's all hand done. There's no machines involved.
Let's go ahead and top off.
Right. Okay. Stay in your chair. Stay in your chair.
It's okay.
All right. We're not going fifth dimensional yet. But
Okay.
these are potent little guys.
This is amazing. It feels amazing.
Yeah, they are, and she did them for me.
Yeah.
These weren't just, in her place and I
Right.
picked them. She did this, with me in mind. So, yeah, aren't those cool?
Very cool. You should. Okay.
They pack a wallop. You can hold that one too.
Okay.
Yeah, I love these, especially when we're doing.
Actually, this one hits different.
Yeah, it does. Well, because this one is more yin and that one's more yang.
Okay.
Okay. That's why.
That's why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's you don't expect
Hold on that for a minute.
Yeah, you can hold on
Just
to
hold
it.
on that for a
It's
minute.
fine. So, over the last couple of days, Inanna and I have some fascinating conversations going on, and a lot of these conversations are born out of real life events. We don't sit around and go, "Oh, what should we talk about?" We have things that we talk about because our real lives have an effect on what goes on with us. It's not our life is out there somewhere and here we are being psychics and mediums and healers. We're interacting all the time. And I mean, you know that in your development at some point, my development, which I've talked about where I was being interviewed, real life events seem to be catalysts for our abilities to really take over.
Yes.
And our past that we, I guess, didn't need anymore was pulled away, yanked away.
Yes.
And you're standing there going, what just happened?
We call it like the fire that like burns everything away, and you're just like kind of left smoldering for a minute going, what just happened? It just got burned alive. And
Right.
then you realize it was really good because you rebirthed
Right.
through it. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, what's fun too is that when you look backwards on your life, and now here you are, your life is what it is, mine is this, and you think about the trail behind you that
I'm gonna have to set this down. By the way, I'm gonna go out. I don't
All right.
I don't know what will happen if I keep holding on to that. So I'm gonna give that
Well,
back to you.
okay, down boys.
I know, right?
So when you trace your life backwards, and I mean for those of you at home too, that where you sit right now, you wouldn't be at this place if some of these events back there, which you thought were bad or not okay, or, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? If those things didn't happen, you wouldn't be where you are today in the goodness and the grace that you have.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
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 When I think about how it all led up to when I met Audrey, if it wasn't people in my life that I had met, some of them, few of them unsavory, but you sort of get paid forward, all of a sudden you just come out into this bliss of, oh, it took that to get here. And some of the challenges that we go through, and I want you to jump in on this,
Okay.
teach us appreciation.
Yes, they do. They do. Spiritual sandpaper, right? So it can take off your rough edges, right? But it can also like help form you into something more that you want to be.
Right.
And do that. Today is actually, interestingly enough, the anniversary of my husband's brain injury. It was 6 years ago today.
Wow.
Yeah, so I didn't pay attention to the date. I didn't make the connection until just a few minutes ago when I looked at the, oh, okay, well, today is actually a significant day in my story.
Sure.
So isn't that interesting that I'm here today on the 6-year anniversary of when I would have promised you that nothing was ever going to be okay again. I wasn't going to be okay. My family wasn't going to be okay. None of us were ever going to be okay again after that one single event of him suffering a frontal lobe TBI.
Amazing.
And so, but if you know my life now, you know, we did turn out okay, right? 6 years later.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I want to jump into the story that you shared with me about the motorcycle incident. Because this is really good, and this is going to set up a lot of what we talk about tonight.
Okay, so and I was actually just showing a couple of people. If you even go back a year ago and you look at pictures of me, you would not recognize me. I've had a major radical physical transformation, energetic transformation, psychic transformation, but also an empowerment transformation. And one of the things that became really apparent to me was I had to live in sovereignty, and I had to stop letting other people or other situations dictate what timeline I'm on. And think of timelines almost like a choose your own adventure book, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm at page 12 and I have this decision to make. And if I choose A, I go to page 46. If I choose B, I go to page 52. If I choose C, I go to page 12. Start at 12 again. So, sorry. But this thing happened, it was a week ago Sunday, and we had just finished Walk for the World, which is a Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation. We had just finished. We went to this nice little cafe. We were visiting with everyone, and it was just fantastic. It was just amazing. Great conversation, and my husband used to ride a motorcycle. And right then, all these motorcycles went by, and I immediately went to a fear response, a trauma response, because he'll ride again. And I'm like, what? No, I mean, my husband still requires a lot of care. He uses a ventilator intermittently, oxygen, a wheelchair. Right. There's still a lot of care. And that comment, he will ride again, man, it just shuddered through my body. And like anything I felt in a long time. Are you ready for this?
Yes, I think so.
Less than 1 hour later, right? Because I started arguing against why he would ever be able to ride. And you have to understand where he is now and where he would need to be to ride, or it would be a quantum level event anyway, right? Because he doesn't drive at all, not a car, not anything. But it would be a quantum level event, which I'm going to hold hope for. But still, the fear took me to this place where I was like, that's just not safe. I can't go through another brain injury. I can't do this again. There's no way. Sure. Less than an hour later, I was driving him to show him the caves where Audrey has. I've gone with her a couple of times. I thought he would love to see those. And so, and you have to remember, we're still relatively new to California, and so I don't quite know the roads or how to do a lot of the navigating. But I was off on the shoulder, across from those caves on that Pacific Coast Highway. Right? That's what it's called. Okay, great.
Right.
I was there, stopped, and I was gonna, do the thing and turn around and park. I was stopped for a good 30, 45 seconds, just trying to figure out where I could get him the closest so we didn't have to walk as far. And I finally found a spot, and I am an extremely alert driver. I don't look once, twice. I looked 3 times. I looked back 3 times. No one was there. I had 2 other people in the car with me. They looked. No one was there. No one was there. When I went to turn and I was just at a crawl, a motorcycle appeared out of nowhere. And in that moment, I swear to you, I saw 3 distinct timelines happening all at the same time. One, I saw where I hit him, and he either suffered a horrible injury or he was killed. And I knew that was I saw that timeline. And then the second timeline is where we butterfly effect, because he swerved. And the third one was we didn't hit at all. And because of my journey, I knew in that moment, whatever I chose to align with would be the future, right? So in my timeline where I'm sitting, we did not hit. There was no impact. There was no sound. You would feel, because even though I'm at a crawl, he was going fast on that highway. You would have felt it. You would have heard it. There was nothing. And so I stopped. There's no damage to my vehicle. I'm just sitting there that was, wow, I'm glad we didn't hit. But then these 3 guys come over the hill and they're saying I hit him. And he turns around, he comes back and he's like, you hit me. And I had a choice to make in that moment. Was I going to fight him or was I going to love him? And I chose love, just so we're clear. I just kept hugging him and telling him out. Regardless of where the reality hit on did we hit or not, all I wanted him to know was that, 1, I cared about his life. I cared that he was okay. And I just kept hugging him and saying, I'm so sorry. I promise you I looked. You weren't there. After the adrenaline calmed down, because the adrenaline was really high for him, understandably so. You know, at first he was insistent I hit him. And he took pictures, we exchanged insurance information. And, you know, I just kept, you know, one of my friends was wanting to kind of argue and say, dude, she didn't hit you. But he was insistent we did. And I knew the only answer here was to stay in love and to not argue with him, to not gaslight him, to understand we were literally living in different dimensions, right? Mm-hmm. We were in different dimensions. And so using the tools that I have, I was able to pull us up to a timeline where we didn't hit. The next morning, he let me know that there wasn't any damage to report on his motorcycle. After all, he would not be making a claim, which I would have been fine with. Again, if that's where he was, that's where he was. I was not going to argue with him. But I think surrendering it, changing the timeline, staying in love is what allowed that entire situation to hit that higher timeline. So he wasn't hurt or killed. There wasn't substantial damage. And it was literally, and he even said, you know, there's no way you could have seen me. There's no way you could have seen me. And so we avoided something catastrophic by shifting the timeline at the last minute. And so everyone watching that had a completely different perspective of what happened. There were 3 men who were witnessing, young men, and he that were so adamant I'd hit him. The people in my car were adamant we didn't. We didn't feel an impact or hear an impact, and there was no damage to the car. There would have been, but because I was able to stay in the frequency of love and just be compassionate, I could elevate the timeline to where we didn't. You know, and even then I found out he's a caregiver in a similar life, and we've kind of formed a friendship after this event. And so we agreed that we were just kind of brought into each other's lives for a reason.
Right.
It could have been catastrophic, but instead it wasn't, because of the ability to shift those timelines. And we're in different timelines. People are living in completely different timelines right now. And so this happened to a friend of mine a few weeks ago. She was turning left, and 3 people there did not. She was the only car. This side, the woman she hit said, "I didn't see you. You weren't there." She said, "I didn't see you weren't there," and she T-boned her. Why? Right. Why is that? It's because we are intersecting our timelines, but we're living in different timelines. So if there was ever a time to be really conscious of where your frequency is, it's right now, because your timeline, you shift up and down constantly. But if your timeline is one that you're going to pull in the disaster or go to fear, like if I would have got out and started arguing with the guy or yelling at him, I would have pulled us into the timeline where he was hurt. I know that. But because I was able to stay in the frequency of love, I was able to pull us to a timeline where he wasn't. I mean, I realize that's some next level quantum stuff, but it's absolutely true.
Sure. Well, you know, with things like that, one you could say, because this is language that's being used, like there's a glitch in the matrix.
There's a glitch in the matrix. You are correct.
Okay. And that's why these things are happening. And also, a lot of what we believe is science fiction on TV and movies is really telling the story of what's to come. Yes. Okay? It's not, it's a coincidence. We're being shown through science fiction what's... In fact, I'll tell you this. Last year, Audrey and I were going through all the streaming services, and so we watched a couple episodes of The X-Files, which was done in like 1988 or 90.
Huge fan.
Okay, right? Yeah, me too. So about the second episode in, they were talking about something as science fiction or improbable, and we looked at each other and went, oh my God, that has really happened. Yes. And so we can't make this up. No. You know, that knowledge was known back then, but it takes time to bring it out. Okay, so it blends into reality.
Yeah, we call those announcements in some of my circles.
Yeah.
It's like they're announcing the matrix. The matrix is making an announcement to you that this thing is coming, and you're getting like a soft exposure through a TV show, a little more of an exposure through a movie, and then eventually you start seeing it on the fringe, right, until it can come into the matrix full on in the collective.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you look at like for a while. The TV show The Flash that ran for about 7 years or whatever, they were talking about parallel universes a lot. They've talked about that in comic books over the last 50 years, whether it's Superman or whatever. And then like in The Flash, they talk about Earth 3. You know, I mean, it's fascinating. And then in the Avengers movie Endgame, where they traveled in time to repair things.
Yes.
That bled into several different TV shows like Loki, where they've caused time variance to happen, and those things can't be reversed. So, I mean, how many times have you had a deja vu where you've like, I've done this before?
Right.
That's because there's in some way you have.
Yes, you have.
You know, you've been there before, you've done that before, maybe in a different time, you know, if you want to say time.
A different timeline, different dimension, or a different echo of time, because echoes are a thing too.
I mean, Audrey tells that story a few years ago where she was with one of our daughters at a softball tournament, and when you see from the air, the fields were laid out in a pentagram, a perfect pentagram, a pentagon pentagram, and she went to get one of the refreshment stands, came back and traced her steps, and there was a different team there. And this man said to her, you can't find your daughter, your team. And Audrey reversed and went back, and all of a sudden they were there.
Right. Yep.
So we have to be careful, especially on the freeway, because if people are making re-entry, all of a sudden there has to be a physical space.
That's right.
For them to go into. And as goofy as it was, that was one of the issues in the Back to the Future movies. Yeah. Like they had to know where they were going to be, or what was there, or what was going to be there. Otherwise, there would be a collision of some kind. I realize the movie isn't the best example.
Well, it's a lot of people know it, so it is a good example. But yes, and that's happening just like almost like weaving a tapestry of time, you know, and there's lots of this happening. And so we are, do you remember the movie Time Cop?
Yeah.
Same, you know, what was it? The same matter can't be in the same space at the same time, right?
Right.
And so, you know, it's like, yeah, you have to make sure that your re-entry is not hitting someone else.
Or Hot Tub Time Machine. No.
I actually didn't see that one.
Stupid. Completely stupid. So I
have to go watch that. You know that,
course,
right? Because now I have to.
I planted the seed.
Yes, you planted the seed.
So
you created the time variant within me so that I need to know what that was so that I can understand the reference, and now I will watch it.
Okay, good. We'll be doing the next time she's on, we're going to do a movie review show for all these science fiction movies. All right. So when we talk about going into the fifth dimension, which is not the musical group from the 60s, when it is the age of Aquarius.
That's right.
Right? So when we talk about existing in the fifth dimension, and over the last few years, that's being talked about a lot. I said to you on the phone today that in the energy work that I do, and I started studying that in the mid-90s, our teacher told us from the start that the work that we're doing is not on or in the physical body. We're working on the soul level in the fifth dimension. So I've been working in the fifth dimension for almost 30 years. And I'm in the fifth dimension a lot, you know, when I'm doing the work. That means many hours a day. I'm existing in the fifth dimension. And when people get done with the kind of energy work that I do, one, we can't track time. Those sessions are about 90 minutes, and it feels like about 20 minutes has passed. And people here behind the scenes have experienced that. They know that, okay, that that's the experience. But at the end of doing all that energy work, if I can do up to 4 of those sessions a day. I'm not tired. Because I don't have the experience that 8-10 hours have passed. However, when I do house blessings, which is a different kind of thing, after a 2-3 hour job, I'm exhausted because I'm plowing through, you know, in the third dimensional world.
Yes, exactly that.
So that's why that is harder and tougher work. But when doing the energy work is, you know, fifth dimensional work, it makes for a very short day, even though at the end of the day you go, "Wow, look what time it is."
Right.
Now I have a question. for you. And this has to do with dreams.
Okay.
All right? Because there's a lot of, we get into some interesting spaces when we sleep. All right? Now, for me, when I have dreams about people, 99% of the time, it's about people that I don't know or have never met. How do you assess that?
So
this was not a rehearsed question.
No, it's a very good one, and I explain this all the time. It's like the web of consciousness, right? So it's like when you are free from your physical body and you go into that dream state, then that little web can connect you, and people who need help are sending those messages out, or wanting people to know their story are sending those messages out, and then those of us with the ability can respond. And actually, you know, I have people all the time contact me and say, you helped me in my dream last night, or you helped me. I saw you in my bedroom last night. Well, sorry about that. But I will say now, this is the only diagnosis I would ever kind of own a little bit. I have narcolepsy, which if you don't know anything about it, it's a brainwave issue. So I spend 10 times the amount of time that a normal person spends in those upper brain waves. So, theta, delta, gamma, I'm up there a lot more than I am anywhere else. So I can go into those altered states and do all kinds of really fun things, but you don't have to have narcolepsy to do it. You know, you could do it other ways too, but did staying up there give me the brain waves, or did the brain waves make it easier? I don't know, but sure. I do know that that's what I believe happens is that net of collective consciousness is there, and people who can access those higher frequencies will get messages for people or even help them work out their problems in that dream state, because maybe that's the only way they can receive the information. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's also the spiritual warfare aspect to that, right? Where you're actually going in and doing the spiritual warfare on that level. And so it's multifaceted for sure, but it is that web of collective consciousness that allows that to come through so that we can. And because I am a medium, I'll tell you that a lot of times when souls are leaving this plane, they will just want someone to know what's happened to them. So I have dreamt their lives and their death my whole life, very detailed, down to, how they died or whether they were alone or someone was with them. And I don't know these people. And so what I do is now that I understand it, of course, didn't like it so much when I was younger, but I just try to be a compassionate witness to what they went through, an observer, if you will, and knowing that, and at the end I always say, just knowing someone knows.
Right.
I wasn't alone now at the end, or knowing someone knows what happened to me, someone knowing my story was enough to free me. And they're able to transcend after that. So that's one of the things too. So multifaceted, but it's like that. It's a web. It's like a giant, huge spider web where you can just trace anyone and be connected to anything. So if they are on their little piece of the web and they're making it shake, and you're over here and you're catching it, then that's when you make the connection and you can go in and help them. In my perspective, anyway.
Right. No. I just wanted to hear what you thought about that.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember years ago, and really coming into my abilities, and my dreams were, really profound, and getting in touch with spirit guides. And I remember dreaming about this woman that was very unique looking. This is like 1991, 92, and unique in terms of the way her hair was and all this. And I remember going with a friend to Universal Studios and seeing this woman at one of the booths, whatever, tickets or whatever. And it was one of those things that it's like, wow. I mean, she was so profound looking that, I didn't go talk to her or anything, because what am I supposed to say?
Well, you already did talk to her. You already did what you're supposed to do. So it was just kind of like I call those thank yous. It popped up again to say thank you. Gotcha, you're welcome.
Okay, got it. Audrey wrote a note, more about the echo, please. Do you mean the
echo?
What is that?
So the echo, when we're talking about time.
Oh, okay.
So in my opinion, which is, we all work from our own opinions, but the way I would describe a time echo is this. When you drop a pebble into a body of water, you get the ripple effect happens, right?
Right.
Well, sometimes something so profound happens, and this is one of the examples I use all the time, Salem. the witch trials in Salem,
Right.
because we do have documented history from that time. I have visited Salem. I've gone to the sites where those who were, in my opinion, murdered are buried and so forth, and I've read the stories. But that was such a traumatizing event on top of the time of the Inquisition. So we know Salem because we're in the U.S., it's familiar to us, but the truth is, if you want to go back, hundreds of years in, the war against, and not just women, but men also who are practitioners, anyone that went outside the box were being murdered. But Salem created that echo. And so that little pebble dropped into the collective consciousness, and it sent rings out. So people who have had lifetimes where they were persecuted for, maybe it was being a midwife, maybe it was knowing herbs, maybe it was being having messages, priestess, prophet, magician, alchemist, whatever it is, that echo then goes into their consciousness. So they say, well, I know I was burned at the stake in Salem. Mm-hmm. I know. And I have probably in my career had over 500 people that have told me they are certain they were burned at the stake in Salem. And the history in this timeline at least doesn't support that, but I would never minimize what they're saying, but I do believe it's an echo. Meaning it's something that appears in their energy, something they fully and truly believe, but it is something that it's off the pebble, but it's not the pebble. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. And you know what? A bit of irony, a sad irony to, you're talking about Salem, that in our modern times, there's many holistic doctors
Yes.
that are no longer on this planet.
Yes.
Because of the work that they've done.
Yes. Well, I just moved here from a state where it was illegal to be psychic.
Right.
We were just talking about my transformation, and for those of you that could go back and look at my old I don't want to ever delete my old Instagram or TikTok or Facebook things, because I want to be a demonstration of change. Right. But if you go back even a year ago, I'm about 140 pounds heavier. I am very unhealthy. One of my eyes is turned in because I had a couple of neurological and autoimmune illnesses. I could barely walk. You go back to August, that was my life of last year. And the transformation from August till now is just amazing. And I will never be ashamed of the path to get here. I love where I am, and those, what we're talking about started, what those events helped me become this person. But if you go back and you look, you're not going to recognize me at all.
Right.
You won't. I am a completely changed person, but it was leaving Oklahoma because it was illegal what I did in Oklahoma. And there's also a strong church presence in Oklahoma that shames and guilts people for seeking someone like me. Mm-hmm. So it's not just it's illegal, but it's also frowned upon by your socio-political and religious institutions. And so we get that, right? We get that fear and that hate when all we're trying to do is elevate everyone, make things better, help people heal. And so, yes, a lot of our natural doctors, a lot of our modern day prophets, our intuitives have all been under the effect of the more 3D lower vibration part of the matrix that says, wait a minute, we have to keep a certain amount of people down here. And so if you're pulling people up and you're elevating people, there's going to be some resistance. And that's exactly what it is.
All right. When you were talking about throwing the pebble in the water, that's also, and I've sort of talked about that on this show before, that when people go to psychics, okay, and it's the psychic part of the client's brain, okay, because that's a psychological term. We use psychic as being a forecaster, okay,
right.
But when your life is where it is, and you get information from someone like us, which is about how the life is going to change or what's going to happen, we're throwing a pebble into your brain pool.
That's right.
And it creates these waves. Now, what I have seen, and this is why I talked about this a number of weeks ago, that you have a reading, and it's good not to have one for a while, because all that has to settle in again. And of course, you create your own reality, your choices that you make. But when people get a reading, and then maybe a week later they get another reading, and even though it's people that are very accurate, like you and me and other people that we know, now we're throwing numerous pebbles into the pool. And now the waves are crossing each other.
Yes.
They're not just fanning out the way water normally does. And now we're starting to create chaos, okay? Because the brain pool is now being scrambled. Because and that's going to create some interesting realities based on the choices that person is going to make, because it's an overload that goes in there.
Yes, it is. Well, and also I do intuitive coaching. So that is where I meet with clients every week, but it's a coaching relationship and not a psychic relationship. So I want to make that clarification, where I help them elevate to the timeline that they want. But as far as like psychic readings or intuitive readings, or, you know, any of the other kind of readings that we do, you're going to pull you're going to see one timeline for them, and I'm going to see a different part of a timeline for them, right? And then this person over here is going to see a different part of a timeline. Right. So, you know, most likely all of us are correct, but because we're, like you said, we're throwing debris in that energy field because there's just too much to process, you know, it sets people back. And that's why I always, you know, tell clients only work with one at a time. You know, I mean, it's only work with one healer, one intuitive, one coach, because if you don't, you're going to overwhelm your own energy field and your own brain.
Right.
You know, and I'm not saying don't get support from other places, but what I'm saying is find the one that resonates and work with that person until you get to where you need to be, and then go work with someone else. But if you know, like they call it doctor hopping or intuitive hopping, psychic hopping, you know, you're going to get lost in that spiral.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you also have to allow time, if I may, for events to unfold.
That's right.
Because then what happens is, if something doesn't happen because a psychic said, well, it's going to happen by June 30th, and it doesn't, then you could accidentally alter your course of action and not continue to pursue whatever that is when that thing is there. Always remember something, that the sciences like numerology and astrology are like clocks. They're based on timing, but psychics don't look at time like that. We're not looking at the when. We can see the who, the what, the where, the how, maybe. But when is a little different, because when we're in the fifth dimension, time doesn't exist. In a three-dimensional world, going into the fourth dimension.
Truth. Hear that. Hear him. Time. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
The fourth dimension is time. In the fifth dimension, it's infinite. There is no time. I remember years ago, good friends, they kept doing reconstruction on their house. And this is probably like May or June. And they said, Nick, when do you see this happening? Okay. And I said, October. It did happen in October the following year.
Right.
All right. Now, here's a different part of that story. So they're under construction, and I'm doing a reading for the husband. And of course, when there's construction on your property, there's that construction paper, there's debris on the ground. And I said to him, be very careful when you go to your house and walk, because you may step on a piece of paper and there's actually a hole there, and you may go down into that hole. Watch your step. So weeks or whatever go on, and I get a phone call from them, and he was walking the property with his wife, and he did step on the paper down into somewhat of a divot, and his wife was going, you know, his name was Michael. Michael, are you okay? Are you okay? And all he could say was, Nick. And his eyes were really big. She thought he was hurt. And it was the moment of disbelief into belief that actually happened. So it's the same people, and I was off by a year on the timing, but the event was exactly what I saw.
Yep. That happens all the time, and so even just knowing something had happened. I remember I had a client one time who was like, well, when am I going to find a partner? And it's been a few years, but I think Spirit said August, right? Okay, so August, it was what Spirit said. And she said, well, this was in like early September. She said, well, I was going to go to this wedding, but the only reason I was going to go to the wedding in early August was to meet my person, but you said I'm going to meet my person in August. So I didn't go to the wedding, right? So like she altered the time. Now that she, like 2 months later, they did intersect again, and they found out that he was at the wedding. And that's where they would have met had she gone. But she didn't go because she altered her timeline. Because like she said, the only reason I would go to the wedding was to meet someone, but you told me I was going to meet the person in August. So I didn't go to the wedding.
Inanna, I have the same story, but it was a guy that when I told him he was going to meet someone and described the woman, he elected not to go to a New Year's Eve party in Las Vegas. He met the same woman in April, 4 months later. When he talked about it, she said, I was at that New Year's Eve party in Las Vegas. So you and I have similar experiences with our clients.
Yes.
See?
I mean, telling someone prophecy or future, aligning them to that highest good timeline is tricky because they can mess it up.
One of my mentors that's Wiccan, she calls it stupid magic.
It is. I mean, you just have to, you have to be really careful because if you know too much, it alters your decisions. And so, I can see, and this is what I do as an intuitive coach. I can see where you're going to end up. I can see what you want. I can see where you end up. But my job is to kind of work the problem backwards and see how you get there. But, if you give someone too much information, they're going to try to rush the process. They're going to try to skip steps, leap ahead. And then, to be quite honest, they mess it up.
Right.
And so it's you have to pebble, just like how spirit helps us, right? Follow the pebble, Inanna, follow the pebble. It's the same kind of thing. And so there is a very, very intricate balance into giving someone enough information so that they can align to the highest good timeline, but not giving them so much that it alters their course.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, when I dreamed about Audrey before meeting her, there was nothing I could do,
Right.
The only common denominator was the fact that I saw this life-size Barbie doll in the backseat of my car was the black four-door sedan that I owned at that time. But there was no parameters. It was in a parking lot.
Right.
And through the course of just following my life, ended up meeting her through a mutual friend at a birthday party,
Right.
So
it's amazing. I will one story here. So I actually predicted my husband's brain injury, just so you know. 10 and
Don't
a half
do any
months,
predictions for me, please.
10 and a half months before he was injured, I said, almost like literally 6 weeks before it happened, I said, you have to leave your job. All I see for us is disaster. You have to leave it. Now, the boss is intuitive too. So we were friends. And I said, he has to leave. All I see for us is disaster if he stays. We had all agreed he was going to leave on good terms, right? And then, the little carrot, but I'll give you a promotion. I don't know how to, do this without you. So he opted to, which took a lot of forgiveness on my part, to remain at that job, even though I told him this was going to happen. And I still have the letter I wrote to them saying that this was going to happen, by the way. And so it happened 6 weeks shy of being 1 year to the date. And so it's, even then, sometimes knowing it, seeing it's going to happen, if it is their timeline, it's where they're going to go, it's what they're going to do. Guess what? They're going to end up there, no matter what, and that's exactly what happened with my husband was knowing. In some ways, I wish I wouldn't have known because I couldn't stop it or I didn't stop it. But whatever, that was the timeline he was on.
Sure.
But also spiritual sandpaper. And I have learned so much over the last 6 years, including, that same, no one changes until they get tired of their own stuff, right? Right. And I had to get tired of my own stuff for that to truly change into the person I am now. And I'm still changing. I always want to change. So when people say, nobody really ever changes, I'm like, well, that is sad,
Right.
I always want to believe we can change. Anything in your life can be changed. You can change your health. You can change how your appearance is. You can change your financial status. You can change anything that you want. Change is the one thing that is always yours. And so even though my husband did stay at that job and he did suffer, and I hate to use the word suffer, but yeah, it was suffering for a long time. Right, he is at UCLA now and he is getting better and we are seeing some improvements. And so I feel like it was a powerful lesson. Not that I try to spiritual bypass because I don't, but I do feel like it's a powerful lesson that helped. It got me here. It got me to LA. It got him to LA. It got us out of Oklahoma. And I don't know that would have happened if we wouldn't have had those experiences. So sometimes knowing it's going to happen, trying to, alter it one way or the other, sometimes it works. Sometimes this is just the path they're on for a reason.
Right. When people throw things around like, oh, it's happening in divine timing, okay? Which that phraseology gets thrown around a lot, and I have nothing on that. But because you're talking so much about time, how do you see that phraseology? It's divine timing. In other words, that's like it happens when it's supposed to happen.
Right. Well, I am a really strong advocate for not spiritual bypassing, and a lot of times people will use it's divine timing or God's will or some phrase like that to say in a form of spiritual bypassing. How I would choose to define divine timing is this: when you are in alignment with that event, it happens. So time is really not the unit of measure here; it's frequency.
Right.
And so whenever you are in alignment with that change, it happens. So that can be tomorrow, that can be in 2 years, and the only real unit of measure that matters is frequency. Right. And that's how I would phrase that. But I do understand sometimes people need spiritual bypassing, and sometimes there is power in surrender, right? And that's what we would say, well, it wasn't time yet. It didn't happen yet, because not so much because of the days on the calendar or because of, the seasons, but because I couldn't hit that frequency yet, or this person couldn't hit that frequency yet. But the moment they do, man, zoom, watch out, it's time.
Right.
It's on. Yeah. So that would be my explanation for that.
Okay. No, there's people come up with reasons for everything.
Right.
I mean, people even say that everything happens for a reason. I don't know that that's true.
Right, because that's spiritual bypassing 101, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's absolute spiritual bypassing, and I wasn't as aware of it before Scott's brain injury, but someone who is a fairly famous person said to me right after his brain injury, well, his soul chose it, so I don't know why you're so upset. Like we were in the hot seat, we're in the throes of it, and this person said that to me, and I'm like, okay, so you're pretty much dead to me now. But it was a form of spiritual bypassing, and now I have a different understanding. And what it meant is I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with what's happened to your husband. I don't have the emotional capacity to be present for you.
Right.
So I'm going to spiritual bypass it and say, he chose it. I don't know why you're upset. And so, because that's what that is. It just says I don't have the emotional capacity to be there for you. So
and that's kind of like saying to someone uncompassionately, well, karma just kicked you in the teeth.
Right.
It's like, ouch.
Right, and that's actually not how karma works, as you know, right?
Right.
But
that's right.
We can be programmed into this 3D mentality where we want to know that people that do bad things get punished, and we want to know that people that do good things get rewarded. But the challenge is that's part of the construct. That's part of, the religious construct says that to keep people poor, right? That you'll get your riches in heaven. So don't worry if you're poor here. It's part of the construct to make you suffer, to make you believe it's good to suffer, godly to suffer, whatever that is. And so don't worry, you'll get your riches in heaven. And then don't worry, that person that cut you off, that person who hurt your feelings, that person who ran over your dog, that's a terrible example, but don't worry, they'll burn in hell. And karma is being misused in the same way as our constructs of like what heaven and hell are being used. And so it's just another form of spiritual bypassing. And if it's what someone needs to get through in that moment, I don't have a problem honoring where they are. But when they're ready for something else, I'm going to teach something different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Karma is not about retribution.
No.
At all. I mean,
no.
Geez. When we were talking earlier, and I think this is what I'm going to ask you will be very uplifting. You talked on the phone earlier about manifestation and how powerful, but how quickly.
Yes.
You can. I think that if there's any kind of lesson direction that you can give them watching about how to manifest what you want. By the way, and we talked about you don't want to manifest what you don't want.
Exactly.
Okay?
Like a motorcycle fear.
Right. Exactly.
Less than an hour. So right.
But people in the three-dimensional world are so caught up in linear
That's right.
results that They think that they can't go from here to here or get whatever this is like that.
Yeah. Well, and it's your frequency, right?
Right.
You will manifest, you will create whatever your frequency is a match for. And that's why we have to mind your frequency, right? And if you don't know what that is, I have a lot of videos on social media about what I'm talking about. You can always start with the map of consciousness from David Hawkins as a good starting place. You truly can have whatever it is that you feel like you want. That if the desire is there, that thing is available to you. There's a timeline for it. We live in the totality of possibility. One of my favorite quotes by Louise Hay. And so, everything is there. And I just watched a channeling by Bashar. And is it right now? There's dinosaurs in your living room, right?
Yeah.
Right now, it's the 1800s in your living room, and it's where you turn your inner dial to. That brings you that experience. And so if you can become a frequency match, some people say vibrational match, and I say, okay, but it's really frequency. And I remember when I first started learning about the law of attraction, which is a law of the universe, right? It's being taught poorly,
right.
Or not taught to the best of its ability, understanding, right? Because we're just told if you speak it, if you say it, right? Well, I don't know about you, but in my lowest points, I would write down, my body is my friend, and I am, and I am financially successful, and I would write all of these things down. And no matter how many times I wrote it down or how many times I said it, look in the mirror and say, I love me, right? I could say the words, but I couldn't hold the frequency. And I have wonderful examples of how I manifested a Traverse sleeping bag instead of Traverse my vehicle, right? Because I manifested what I said, but not what my frequency could hold. And at the same time, I spend my birthday in Paris. A year later, I realized I was in Paris, Texas on my birthday.
Right.
Not what I meant, not what I said, but what my frequency could hold. And so the reason why the law of attraction is getting the good and the bad is because you're not being taught its frequency. You're being taught that if you speak it enough times, then it happens for you. People speak it a few times. I got a wonderful new job. I have a wonderful new job. You say it 12 times a day for 5 days, for 30 days, and nothing happens. Why? It's because you only gave it lip service. You didn't actually change the inner frequency within you here to match that wonderful new job, or to match whatever the thing is that you desire. And so it's all frequency. All frequency.
So how do people adjust their frequency?
There's a lot of techniques. The one I teach is called intensive journaling, but we try to create through this intensive journaling process by using brainwaves. And so when you can get out of the 3D and get your brainwaves up to higher level, you can access those higher energies that allow you to manifest a lot more quickly and easily. And so your frequency, think about this, okay? If you want to, if you, especially if you're like a parent, you have young kids, and you need to clean your house, and you are just dog tired, you have nothing left to give. What happens if you put on really upbeat, fast music with good memories? All of a sudden, your energy changes, right? Your frequency changes. And now you can go and you can clean your house. But let's say that you need to relax. Okay, I've got to relax. I'm all revved up. I had a hard day. Well, you don't put on the house cleaning music, right? There's always a tool for the job. And so then you would put on, maybe some meditation music or do something else. There are tools that can help us change our frequency. There are tools that can help us maintain our frequency. But at the end of the day, that map of consciousness is a good idea. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? Anything below 500, which is 528 is the frequency of love. Anything below 500 is going to be a frequency that is going to bring you into what you do not want. And so anything above that can bring you into what you do want. So asking yourself this, what am I feeling? And if you're not feeling a match for what it is that you desire, you've got to find the right tool for the job to adjust your frequency. And that's whenever you start seeing huge shifts in consciousness. And you don't have to go A to B to C to D to E. You can go from A to Z. But that's called a quantum shift, and you're going to have to know how to change your frequency. And so that would be, there's all kinds of tools. There's meditation, there's music, there's energy workers, there's intuitives, there's coaches. But at the end of the day, you can also change your frequency. Just you. You don't need anyone else. You can do it.
Yeah, people have to know. Well, first of all, you have to know what you want.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yes. And what I tell my clients, if you don't know what you want, like, okay, I know I don't like my job, but I don't know what I want to do. Great. Let's start with how you want to feel at the end of the day. Like when you get done with your job at the end of the day, how do you want to feel? Let's start there. Okay, well, I want to feel like I made a difference in the world. I want to feel like I'm generously paid. I want to feel like, I come home and I'm excited about life instead of completely drained. Great. We can start there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I had a client years ago that came in for a reading, and it was all about everything that was wrong with her job. Her boss, her coworkers, the commute, not enough money, and she just went into this litany of all this, and I was like, uh-oh. And she was back like a month later, and she sits in front of me, and she's in tears. I said, what happened? She goes, I lost my job. And I looked at her, and I said, and I'm surprised why?
Yeah.
She's like, what do you mean? I said, well, you told the universe you didn't want your job.
That's right.
Well, I need to make money. I said, but you were in pain, and the universe took away your pain.
That's right. It really does work that way. Wayne Dyer had an interview one time where he said he was on a radio show, and he walked in and everybody was so sad because they had just been bought out and everyone was losing their jobs. And he said, congratulations, what do you want to do now with your life? And he was like, what?
Right.
No, right. We are given opportunities. And if you don't, like, for example, just even because I had a lot of autoimmune diseases, and I was actually spent a good deal of time in a wheelchair in 2004 to 2007. I was blind in my left eye from MS. Wow. And so that opportunity, while it sucked, right, it also let me know I could heal. Let me know I could change my life. Let me know that. And so if you take that opportunity, losing a job, right?
Yep.
Or having an illness, getting knocked on your butt, whatever it is, take it as the pause to say, what I had in my life wasn't working, and now I'm going to create something else.
Surely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And when you have something with your eyes, you can look at that as a body syndrome. What weren't you seeing?
Right.
Right,
or what was I seeing that I didn't want to see?
Yeah, exactly. We have a couple minutes left.
Okay.
If people would like private time with you, tell them how they can get in touch with you.
Okay, so first of all, I'm on all TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Emails are there, inannadraper@gmail.com. I do have this online scheduling site, but it'd be easier to go to social media and click on it, but it's vagaro.com/Inanna Draper Consulting. I also have, I'm going to start, Audrey and I were talking, I'm going to offer a workshop at the Newmont Center. She had asked me to come back, so that will be
good.
Hopefully we can figure out some date for that soon. And then I also teach online via Zoom. So wherever you are in the world, you can catch one of my Zoom classes, because that's just part of the outreach of trying to teach in a different way and help raise the collective as much as possible.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, and we love having you at the center.
Well, thank you. I love
Absolutely.
you guys. I'm so glad we got connected through Catherine.
Right, exactly. Yes, thank you, Catherine. And if you have any questions of me, you can get a hold of me at the Newmont Center. 818-865-8770 is the main phone number for the center. My email is nnewmont@gmail.com. Here on Facebook. This also airs on YouTube. So there's a lot of ways. Or you can go to newmontcenter.net, check out our website. Anyway, it's
all the ways.
Oh yes,
or send up a psychic message. Yeah. We'll catch it.
Exactly. I knew you wanted to reach out to me.
That's right. Yes.
Well, how many times, we have a minute left, how many times have you picked up and called a client and said, how is everything? And they're going, I've been meaning to call you.
Yes. Or run into them somewhere.
Right.
Well, not so much here because I'm still new here, but in Oklahoma, that was always, I don't care where I was, I would run into someone. I was like, oh my gosh, I was just going to call you or reach out to you because I need you, and the universe would just bring us right together.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's divine timing.
The SOS went out.
Right. And you heard it.
The spider web dangled, right? And then it reached and we connected. Yeah.
Exactly. Definitely have you back on the show in weeks ahead.
Okay.
Everyone, please watch Audrey tomorrow night on Conscious Mind Tripping, on Facebook. Want to thank Ed from behind the scenes. We are here at the Conejo Valley Radio Studios. Thank you for everyone
thank you.
that has been watching. We appreciate you. And always, again, to you, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This show could have gone 3 hours, if not more.
Yeah, I could talk a lot.
Yeah. And yes, right there with you. Anyway, thanks so much. Tune in next week. Now, next week, my schedule permitting, I plan on doing a show, but if our high school softball team keeps winning, then I'll be in the playoffs somewhere. But if I am on next week, Audrey will be interviewing Merlin. So just stay tuned here on Facebook. So if there's a show, it will be Merlin. And then more guests to follow down the road. Anyway, thank you. It's time for us to go. This has been Mainstream Metaphysics with Inanna and Nick. See you next week. And as always, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Good night, everyone.